Good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Feinberg, and I'm Gift of Life's founder and CEO. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to Gift of Life's Michigan Town Hall, addressing healthcare disparities in our communities. I'd like to thank our organizing partner, the NAACP, and our sponsors, Morgan Stanley, Fidelity Investments, the McKesson Corporation, and Rubius Therapeutics, for their tremendous support. Today's topic could not be more timely or important. We have watched as COVID 19 has spread throughout the United States, leaving a trail of human destruction in its wake. And we have been reminded of the inequities that permeate healthcare, resulting in unequal outcomes for people of color. These disparities extend far beyond our mission to provide a cure for those battling diseases like blood cancer, immunodeficiencies, and sickle cell. But as part of our mission to create equal healthcare outcomes for everyone, we are compelled to take action, addressing not only this, but the larger issue that the pandemic has further exposed. When I was diagnosed with leukemia in the 1990s, I had no idea that my chances of survival were tied to my ethnic background. It wasn't until I met with a transplant physician in New York that I was told that I would never find a matching bone marrow donor because of my Jewish genetic heritage. You see, tissue type is inherited, like the color of our eyes or our hair. So the best chance of finding a genetic match lies with those of similar race and ethnicity. Unfortunately, the global donor pool is not ethnically and racially diverse, likening the search to looking for a needle in a haystack. Thankfully, with a lot of hard work and a 4 year high profile grassroots campaign, I was fortunate enough to find my match. Now it's my life's mission to pay it forward. Every patient deserves an equal opportunity to benefit from the treatment that can save their lives. Everybody. The registry must be representative of people of all backgrounds. To help give voice to this message and encourage others to join the fight against blood diseases, Gift of Life has launched a new short film in collaboration with rapper and lyricist Terrell Trizzy Miles, with creative support from the Lucy Collective and The Mill. Allow me now to introduce Blood is Thicker.
So Terrell, what made you want to write this, bro?
Because blood is thicker than water, like fathers,
mothers, sons, and daughters. But what if I told you the blood relation can go farther than the people you know? You have the power to save a life with a simple swab of the cheek. That's all you need to make someone else's life complete. For those like me, or from a different creed, no matter what you look like, there's someone out there who you can be. A hero to, a vessel of new life. Someone who can bring them light when the road seems weak. For those who seek bone marrow or stem cells, through this one gesture, they will be allowed to prevail and tell the tale of how one small act managed to break the scale, and their life was allowed to once again set sail to heights unknown, to love once more. The gift of life, from my family to yours.
Absolutely incredible. Terrell, if you're listening, you're so incredibly talented. The film you just saw, Blood is Thicker, is one of the initiatives we've put in place to educate communities on these very important issues. This town hall is another. And so, in partnership with the NAACP and Dynamic Changemakers, we are pleased to have you join us for this one of many meaningful conversations about ensuring that Black, Indigenous, and people of color have safe, effective, and full access to healthcare and life saving treatments. And now it is my truly great pleasure to welcome today's moderator, former NBA player and leukemia advocate, Walter Bond.
Well, thank you, Jay. And that was a wonderful introduction. And let me make something clear. First of all, some of you guys might be thinking, well, he played in the NBA. I never heard of him. Well, I never heard of you either, so we're equal, right? But Jay, I just want to thank you for being an impact player. And in my NBA career, there are always impact players. We talk about Michael Jordan, you talk about Dennis Rodman, you talk about Isaiah Thomas, you talk about LeBron James. Those are impact players in basketball. Jay, I want you to understand that you're an impact player of life. The one thing that I learned in basketball as my career ended, I was sitting there talking to my wife and I was like, is this it? Like, we made great money. We lived a dream. We got a chance to play in the NBA, but is this it? And the moment I became a motivational speaker, the moment I began to be able to impact others, I realized there was much more out here than basketball. So Jay, I want you to understand from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate being here with the gift of life. And as far as I'm concerned, Michael Jordan's good. LeBron is good. But Jay, you're an impact player because your passion and what you've done on behalf of people who don't even know you, you're saving lives. And so when I got asked to join this program by Sharon, Jay, and your team, it was a no-brainer for me because after my basketball career ended, I wanted to have more impact because I knew it was just basketball. It was nothing more than a game of basketball. And thank you, State of Michigan. I got Michigan connections, played for the Detroit Pistons, got heavily recruited by the University of Michigan. And it's a funny thing when you meet somebody from Michigan, the first thing you want to say is, hey, man, where are you from? And they lift up their hand. And I'm like, you're going to pledge the allegiance? No. Why is it that every time you meet someone from Michigan, they got to lift up their hand and show you where they're from? So right now, just for the sake of it, lift up your hand right now and just let us know where you're from. Point to that point in the hand where you're from. And people say, I'm from here, and I'm from here, and I'm from here. And if you're from the UP, they got to do all of this. And I'm like, oh, man. So if you're from Michigan, I'm going to stop asking where you're from. Just say Michigan. Here's why Gift of Life is so important to me. I'm not the first Walter Bond. My daddy was a country boy from Tennessee. Born and raised in Jackson, Tennessee, got educated, moved to Chicago to raise his family. And I'm the youngest in the family. And to be honest with you, my brother and sister were really good students. And I was not a good student because all I wanted to do was play pro ball. My father was a high school principal. My mama was a kindergarten teacher. And although I was really good in sports, my parents always taught me that this family produces student athletes. This family produces student athletes. I know we got young people out here. I know we've attracted a lot of college kids and high school kids, and some of you guys have been impacted by the gift of life because you've been a donor or maybe you've been a receiver. But here's the truth. We're looking for impact players tonight. We're looking for impact players tonight. And one thing I loved about playing basketball, I was a participant. So when my basketball career ended, I got hired by the Minnesota Timberwolves to be a broadcaster, and I didn't like it. And here's why. I was a spectator. I don't like being a spectator. I like to participate. So if nothing else tonight, we're going to leave with a whole bunch of participators. We're not going to have any spectators because right now lives are at stake. I mean, we're in the middle of the craziest time that we've seen in our lifetime. I mean, we have over 8 million people in America who's been diagnosed with COVID-19. We've already had 220,000 people perish in 6 months? Now we can't leave our house. Now we're wearing masks. Now we got to wash our hands all day. This is a crazy time in America. So it's not time to be a spectator. It's time to be a participant. And so even though COVID-19 is the hot message, is what we're talking about now, sickle cell's been here for a long time and it's not gone anywhere. Leukemia has been here for a long time. It's not going anywhere. I played pro ball. I made it to the NBA. But here's the truth. My dad's brother, he was the first Walter Bond. My uncle was 6'7" and made it all the way to the major leagues. He and my dad were 1 year apart. Could you imagine how proud this family was? From this little small town in Tennessee, country folk, sharecroppers, came from nothing. My uncle, 6'7", made it to the major leagues, played for the Cleveland Indians, played for the Minnesota Twins, played for the Houston Astros. This is my dad's brother. And at 29, while he was in the major leagues, he got diagnosed with leukemia. This is back in the 60s. Medicine is not where it is today. And at 29 years old, this Black family in Tennessee needed my uncle, not just to be proud of him. He was able to change their lives because of his ability to play Major League Baseball. But after battling through the minor leagues and finally making it to the major leagues, when he was 28, he hit 21 home runs. He was on his way to being a Major League Baseball star and got diagnosed with leukemia. My family lost my uncle, Walter Bond. I'm not the first Walter Bond. So my dad named me after his brother. So when I got the call from the Gift of Life, you got to understand where I'm coming from. Yes, I played pro ball too. It's a gift that the family has. We are all good athletes. I had a big sister play college ball. It is what it is. You make those families, everybody can sing. You met those families, and everybody's a good athlete. That was just my family. But here's the truth. Leukemia has hit close to me. And on behalf of my uncle, Walter Bond, who I never met, I'm tired of being a spectator. I'm ready to be a participant. And if you got to swab my mouth to change your life, go ahead and swab it. If I got to give you some blood to change your life, go ahead and take it. Because as long as there's breath in my body, I'm going to be an impact player. And you're hearing from a guy who made it to the NBA. The NBA was about me. But right now, the gift of life is about you. The gift of life is bigger than basketball. The gift of life is global. And so I got a special request for all of the Black, Indigenous people of color. I know we've been victimized. I know we've been mistreated. We're going to hear testimonies of people who got a right to not trust. But right now, we do have some power. And we got to exercise that power right now. And so as we get into our conversation with all of our panelists, I want to make a special plea before we leave tonight to recite these words. I am a participant. I am not a spectator. I am a participant. We have a wonderful panel in front of you tonight. It is truly my honor to be able to moderate and facilitate this panel. And I believe in ladies first. Let's first go to the former mayor of Flint, Michigan, Dr. Karen Weaver. Welcome to the Gift of Life conversation tonight. And I know you guys have had issues with water and other health disparities. Just real briefly, just touch on what has Flint gone through as it relates to just being able to get some clean water. We see it on TV with kids in Africa walking 4 miles and 5 miles and carrying water on their head just to get clean water. We don't expect that to happen in America. You don't expect that to happen in Flint, Michigan. I don't know where Flint is, but you let me know where Flint is. Okay. You let me know.
Can you see it?
But, just real briefly, just touch on how did that devastate the city of Flint in terms of just trusting something as simple as water?
You know what? Well, thank you, Walter, and thank you to Gift of Life and NAACP. When I saw what this was about, I was excited to be here and be part of this. And then listening to you, I said, I knew I made the right decision. So thank you for that. But yeah, we can talk about Flint because Flint is in an interesting place because we did have a water crisis that we have not completely gotten through. It has not been resolved. And when water is a basic human right, and you're living in the Great Lakes state, because around that hand are all of the Great Lakes, and you don't have access to clean, affordable water, that's a problem. And when it happened at the hand of people that were supposed to protect and serve, that's an even bigger problem. So Flint was dealing with and still dealing with a public health crisis. You're absolutely right, because for 18 months, people drank poisoned water. And it really pointed out health disparities as far as what was going on when you're in a predominantly Black city. Because, we looked and we saw what was happening with our babies, with our infants, when those blood levels were so astronomically high. What we did not understand at that point was while lead is a pediatric issue and pediatricians know what to do around that, we didn't know what to do with our our adults and with our seniors and people with compromised immune systems. And so getting the medical expertise to deal with that took us a little while. So, we're getting through. And then comes COVID-19. We're still reeling and dealing with the first public health crisis, and then the second one comes along. And so you look at disparities, because one of the things that really got me riled up was knowing that as a Black person, we're 12, 13, 14% of the population, but we're 40% of the deaths. And I could look at Flint and see, after Detroit, we had the largest, number of deaths taking place as a result of this. So when you look at the water crisis and, having ingested poisoned water for such a long time, our immune systems have been compromised even more than those underlying conditions that we had before. So at this point, it's almost like you're waiting to see what cohort is going to manifest another physical illness next. So it has really highlighted the healthcare disparities in the city of Flint. It's made us very aware and very nervous. So it's impacted us not only physically, but mentally. And so that's where we are in Flint. It's something that we never expected was to, like you said, we're not in a third world country. We're in the United States, and you expect to be able to drink water and have access to clean water. So you go through one public health crisis and another one comes before you can even, completely get through that first one. So we're in a peculiar situation here in the city of Flint, I will tell you that.
Real briefly, and we have an all-star panel tonight. I just want to ask one follow-up question. And I just thought about it. I mean, they're telling us to wash our hands, right? I mean, we got a twin pandemic, right? You got to deal with the coronavirus, and then you have to deal with racial injustice. And I know all kind of guys from Flint, Michigan. I remember playing against Glenn Rice, and there's a guy named Justice Thigpen. There's a long line. Flint, I don't know what you guys.
I know them.
you guys have built some amazing ball players out of Flint. But the question is, as an elected official, I don't even want to open up this Pandora's box. You want to be able to trust your elected officials. So moving forward, as it relates to Flint, to water, social injustice, pandemics, healthcare crisis, disparities in a city like Flint, what is the solution that we need to get? Because if we can figure it out in Flint, we can package it up and take it around the country. What do you think is the solution that we need to just start to do in Flint?
Well, one of the things is, you talked about it, trust. And it's really difficult to rebuild and reestablish trust in a city like Flint, just because of the way in which things happened. We know a lot of places all across the country are having issues with water. But like I said, what separates us from them is the way it happened. And so it does make it very hard to reestablish trust. And that's one of that has to happen. That's the bottom line. Because if you don't trust your elected officials, if you don't trust healthcare providers, if you don't trust those that are in certain kinds of situations, you're not going to take the advice. The other thing is, you have to educate people. And this was a great opportunity for us in Flint to educate the community, not only about healthcare, but about environmental justice kinds of issues, and letting them know that their voice is their power, and to always speak up and speak out when you see these kinds of things happening, and recognize also that Flint wasn't about water and it wasn't about infrastructure. Flint was about systemic racism. And so when you acknowledge what got this started, because we know Flint is predominantly Black, we know it was an issue of race, and it was also an issue of class. And so acknowledging the root cause of what happened is what needs to take place, and moving from there. But one of the things I always told people is, we deserve to know the information, whether it's good information or and I shouldn't say good, whether it's what we want to hear, or even if it's what we don't want to hear. We need to know so we can protect ourselves and do what's in the best interest of the people that are here.
You know what? One thing I believe is that adversity will increase your value. And I know, as African Americans and indigenous people of color, we deal with a whole lot. So I want to turn to Dr. Z. Dr. Zaidi Amar. I've been practicing your name all day. I'm not gonna mess with your middle name. I don't even want to jinx myself. But let's talk about health. You're an oncologist and a hematologist. I've been practicing pronunciating that all day. Explain what a hematologist is, and then let's shift to sickle cell. Sickle cell, we've all heard about it, but it's almost like one more thing that we got to worry about. You've committed your life to helping people, live or survive sickle cell. So just kind of bring us up to speed. What is sickle cell, and what have you been doing to help combat the issue of sickle cell?
First of all, Walter, that was perfect. You nailed that. That was great pronunciation. You got everything perfect. I want to thank Gift of Life, NAACP, obviously my co-panelists. I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm a hematologist, and that means that I'm a specialist of disorders of blood. And sickle cell disease is a life-threatening, debilitating, unpredictable condition that affects 100,000 individuals in the United States and almost 5,000 individuals right here in Michigan, the vast majority of whom are in Detroit and Flint. Sickle cell is unique. Sickle cell disease provides us the perfect example of racial injustice and health inequity in medicine. And the reason for that is because sickle cell disease arose in sub-Saharan Africa. And as a direct result of the transatlantic slave trade here in the United States, it is a disease predominantly of the Black community. So when you look at individuals with sickle cell disease, you look at individuals who have a disease that causes unbearable pain, early organ failure. And on top of that, they're dealing with this cage of structural racism that they are dealing with because of the color of their skin. And this is the only disease that uniquely affects basically only the Black community. Of course, it affects the Hispanic community as well, the Indian subcontinent, the Middle East, but really predominantly it affects the Black community. What we see is layers to why this is such a problem, Walter. We see at two levels. We see a layer of structural racism that causes us to not have treatments, to not have support, to not have therapy to treat biologically, psychologically, and sociologically this disease. We see disparities in funding. We see disparities in funding and find that diseases like cystic fibrosis and hemophilia get more attention than sickle cell disease. And you can't help but draw the conclusion that the only change between those populations is race. It's the color of your skin. And unfortunately, even though only 6 genes out of the 25,000 genes of the human genome control the color of your skin in this country, when you're trying to access healthcare, it makes all of the difference because we have boxed people in based on the color of their skin. And then the other layer to this is interpersonal racism. Doctors believe, for the longest time, still believe that they don't have bias. And this has been proven wrong time and time again. In every medical textbook, you turn to any disease page and it'll tell you risk factor is race. What I'm here to tell you is the risk factor is not race, the risk factor is racism. And that's what we're trying to combat. That interpersonal racism that my sickle cell patients are dealing with, that sickle cell patients deal with all over the country, is truly what's causing these bad outcomes. I have sickle cell patients who have debilitating, unpredictable pain of literally their tissues being deprived of oxygen. And they walk into an emergency room in the middle of an opioid epidemic, and the first thing that people see is the color of that patient's skin. And the first thing that that patient has to deal with is the physician in front of them, there to protect and serve, is calling them a drug seeker, an addict, addicted to opioids. So what I'm here to tell you guys today that you very well know is what's happening to people like George Floyd by police is happening to sickle cell patients inside of hospitals. And that's the battle that we have ahead of us to take down structural racism in healthcare.
So, you have an active audience tonight. We got a bunch of hungry students. And one thing I love about young people, I got 3 of them. My son's 25, my daughter's 23, my other daughter's 22. They're single, holler at me. But with that being said, what can our young people do? I mean, we got some passionate kids on the call tonight, and these are the good kids. They're not on Facebook and they're not out here smoking weed. They're on this call tonight, learning, being educated. They want to have an impact. If you spoke to the community tonight, what would be your message or something we can do? You know, a lot of times, you know, a lot of things are out of our control. You know, we didn't ask to come to America. We didn't ask to get put in shackles. We didn't ask to be slaves. It is what it is. And so we're here. We've been able to build so much charisma. Think about the charisma of the Black community. Think about all the things we've been through and been able to rise above, and we're still here, right? That's why we have so much energy and charisma. We're not going to die no matter what you throw at us. We're going to keep moving, right? We're never going to stop moving forward, right? So as a doctor, what can we do to be a participant that can help you in your fight against sickle cell anemia?
Walter, thank you for that. Listen, sickle cell disease is a back of the bus disease for everybody, for the patients, for the doctors, for the nurses. Anybody who wants to be part of this community has a struggle ahead of them, because people don't want to talk about sickle cell disease. They don't want to address the fact that we have a big problem here. To the youth out there that are listening to this, I want to make this so clear to you guys. Sickle cell disease affects, as a trait, 1 in 13 individuals in the Black community. This is the most common hereditary inherited condition in the Black community. We need to be having conversations about sickle cell disease with anybody who's going to listen. We need to hold to task hospitals, hospital systems, healthcare systems that are revenue driven, and make them clearly focus on what they're doing to prevent racism in the healthcare industry. What are they doing to help sickle cell patients shed the stigma? What psychological support are you providing the Black community with chronic disease, right? This is the time to take advantage of the spotlight, to get those resources to build a better future, because sickle cell disease isn't going anywhere, right? We've got 100,000 individuals desperate for resources. We just got 4 therapies for sickle cell disease, 3 that came in the last 3 years, because patients with sickle cell disease gave their trust back to healthcare, right? A healthcare system that has wronged the Black community over and over and over again. We've had patients now come back and say, we trust you. We will participate in a clinical trial. We will do a bone marrow transplant. We're going to give you a little bit of trust back. And it's on us as a healthcare community to preserve that trust, to build that bridge. But for the youth, I really want to encourage interacting with the physicians, interacting with the healthcare system, really, really focusing on the discussion around race, implicit bias, and healthcare.
And, thank you for that. And what I want to do, I want to introduce our third panelist, who's a part of an amazing lineage. I saw the movie, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. We have her grandson on here today, and what a wonderful story. What a wonderful expression. And I believe Oprah was a big player in the film being created and delivered. We had no idea, and let me tell you something. I lived in Minneapolis for 25 years. So for example, if there's no camera on George Floyd, we don't even know that happened. That's just another day in the life of a Black man. And I meet people all the time. I live in a community here in South Florida. And when all the things kind of broke out around George Floyd, we're the only Black family in this neighborhood, right? And this is what I did. I want y'all to hear me clearly. I'm from Chicago, South Side. Keep it real, 100. But one thing I learned about resources, you got to use whatever resources you have to get information or access. And I could have a whole breakdown on how important that is by having information and access. Many of the residents in this neighborhood, after the George Floyd incident, they reached out to me and said, Walter, how can we help? I mean, we're talking about millionaires, multimillionaires. We got a couple of billionaires in our neighborhood. And they reached out to me and said, man, this is bogus. How can we help? And they were like, man, what's going on with the cops? This is crazy. I told them, I said, man, this has been going on since the 60s. You heard about police brutality, right? You just now believe it because you see it. The only thing that really changed is the cell phone. So thank you, Verizon and T-Mobile and Samsung. The cell phone camera is what changed the game. So we got a lot that we deal with. We struggle with a lot that's unfair. And that sets us up perfectly for David Lacks Jr. I don't even want to steal your thunder. Just briefly, tell us about your grandmother and just educate all of us And if you didn't see that movie and you locked up, you on Hulu and you on Netflix and all these little, man, go find that movie tonight and watch it because it's a game changer. But David, tell us what happened to your grandmother and why it was so important for this film to be produced.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having me on the Gift of Life for having me, and thank you for being such with this wonderful panel. I just recently lost a best friend of mine to leukemia, and my son, he has a sickle cell trait, so I've been learning a little bit more about sickle cell. But for those who don't know the story of Henrietta Lacks, like I said, check out the movie. It was a good movie, or read the book. It was a bestseller, and it actually stayed at the top of the bestseller list for many weeks. But back in 1951, Henrietta Lacks, an African American woman, went into Johns Hopkins Hospital, and because she felt the tumor inside of her body. And when she went to Johns Hopkins Hospital, they removed the sample of her cells, which was cancer cells. Now, normally that story would end when they remove the cells, but Henrietta's cells were special because Henrietta cells did something that no other cells around the world would do. They survived when other cells died. So this one woman, like I said, she entered the Johns Hopkins, and they happened to be looking for cells that they could replicate. But anytime they tried to get a sample, the cells would just die after a week or so. But miraculously, Henrietta walked in, they took a sample of cells, and hers did something that no other cells did. They multiplied at week after week after week. And they became the gold standard of cells and used in almost anything. So now that the scientists had this unique cell that they could replicate, they had a way to replicate tests and stuff, the procedures they did. So the cells went all around the world, and they actually flew them up in space. They was used to find a cure for polio, and also involved in gene mapping, clone, reproduction, all kinds of things. Pretty much, I had a chance to talk to Dr. Francis Collins. He told me it's easier to tell you what the cells have not been used in than it is to have told you what the cells have been used in, because they're used all around the world. And so from this, like I said, one woman in 1951, she came to the hospital, they took the cell, and the cell became a miracle of modern medicine. But family didn't know about it for 20 years. By chance, my aunt happened to go to a doctor, have dinner with a doctor friend of hers, and he recognized her last name. He's like, Lax, are you happen by any chance related to Henrietta Lacks? She was like, yes, that's my mother-in-law. And he went on to explain that, they've been using her cells for scientists for the past 20 years to help cure, polio and testing many diseases. Pretty much, like I said, anything you can think of, the healer cells has been used in. And he went on to tell her the whole story about it. And this is the first time her or anybody in the family knew about it. So the cells were taken in 1951. This happened in 1973. So my aunt got up, like she said, she was just, her mouth, she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Like she said, she never heard nothing like this. So she went back and told the family. And the family tried to find out information, but they couldn't find out anything. And then probably a couple years later, because the healing cells were so powerful, they was contaminating other cells, and they needed to find a way to isolate them. So they had drew blood from the family to see if they could isolate the markers in the healed cell. Because Russian scientists was claiming they had a new cell that could live on, but it was actually healed cells. And other scientists was saying they had the same thing, but it was all, like I said, it was all healed cells. Healing cells were so strong, it was contaminated. So in 1970, that happened in 1973. Then we fast forward to 2011. Like I said, family wasn't able to get nowhere. Like I said, they wasn't able to find out any information about the healer cells, very little information about Henrietta Lacks. And coming 2000, Rebecca Skloot approached our family to write a book. At first, we were skeptical because people said, they would be able to help us and never helped us, or just went out the window, or just disappeared, or they got what they wanted and left. So after Rebecca Skloot wrote the book in 2000, started writing the book, she didn't finish it until 2011, the whole 10-year journey. The book became a bestseller, and this is when the family learned really about the healer cells. All we knew about prior was that they went up in space and they helped cure polio. But once the book came out, we found out everything. Like, It's like, so if you line up every hair cell, not next side by side, and wrap around the earth around 3 times. Like I said, they pretty much used in every medical industry in the world. They're the gold standard cells and so forth. So let's see. Then we want to fast forward to
No, here's a question, Dave. Let me ask this question because Dr. Z kind of framed it up about how political and racist medicine can be. And that is just crazy when you think about it. Like, wow, like we deal with racism. We all know it exists. But man, in medicine, you mean to tell me you could be racist in medicine? So just simply put, they never informed your family about all of the advancements because of your grandmother. And that was all about the money. That was just all about the money.
Exactly,
they wanted to completely shut your family out. And let me be clear. Let me be clear to everybody on this call tonight. And I say this to anybody that's listening to me. In America, there's a clear path if you can play ball. If you can play baseball, basketball, or football, there's a clear path. If you can sing or act, there's a clear path. But that's about the only clear paths we have in America. They're really tough to fight over, get through, and it is what it is. I want you young people to hear me that, because if you're going to be in a fight, you better get in your stance. Y'all don't hear what I'm saying. If you know you about to have a fight, I'm from Chicago. If I know somebody about to get into a fight with me, I'm going to get in position, right? Because I have to make sure that if I'm a fight, I ain't going to get my butt kicked. So in America, we got to fight, guys. And it is what it is. You can feel sorry for yourself. You can make excuses. You can justify it. It is what it is. So you better get in position. So when adversity comes your way, you know how to hit the curveball. If adversity, I'm a baseball guy from a baseball family. See, in baseball, everybody can hit the fastball. But if you want to play in the major leagues, you got to hit the curveball. And as African Americans, we've been hitting curveballs, and they constantly throw curveballs at us. The Black family, they threw every curveball they could, and the whole goal was to deny credibility, honor, but most importantly, money. Here's my final question, David, because everybody's awake right now. As a young kid say, we woke, right? I know that's not correct English, Mom, but it is a point. We woke, okay? What do you want your grandmother's legacy to be? Simply put, because I got some warriors on this call tonight, and we're ready to go. We're ready to participate because this should not have happened, okay? And we're not going to let it continue to happen. What do you want Henrietta Lack's legacy to be?
Legacy to be a family, like I said, like what you said earlier, like being a participant. Like I told you, all this stuff happened in 1950, 1973, 2011, and Lack's family had no idea. But in 2011, we signed an agreement with the NIH when they sequenced the genome without the family's consent and knowledge. But instead of this time, we went, Dr. Francis Collins came and talked to us, and we said, look, instead of being the last to know like we had in the previous year, we want to be the first to know. So we decided that we are going to become a participant. So we joined the NIH board. We go out there and speak to the audience. We go out there and talk to people. Advocate for yourself. Know what's going on. Know your medical rights. Because we no longer want to sit on the sideline if this is something like that. Henrietta never had a chance. So we want to have the chance that she didn't have. So what I want to know is that the last family are participants. Like I said, we joined the NIH board. We review genetic applications. We travel around as well as speak. And we just try to do what Henrietta never had a chance to do. She never knew how remarkable her cell was, because shortly afterwards, she lost her life to that cell because they were so aggressive. They took over her whole body and just eventually took her out. And like I said, the family didn't know for 20 years what was going on. And it could have been because of racism, like I said, because they disguised the name as Helen Ross and Helen Lane for the longest time. And only a handful of people knew she was Henrietta Lack, that was a Black woman. So the fact that, that is out there, that's what we want to know. We want the people to know who Henrietta Lack was, that she's more than a cell, that her family is out there advocating for her and doing what she never did. She was a woman who took care of people, who took care of the neighborhood, who took care of life. Now with her cells left behind, she is taking care of the world. And we're so thankful and grateful for that. And we just want to live up to her and what she has on it. Like I said, she never had a chance to do it, so we want to do what she didn't do by educating people in our community, educating people around our world, and advocating for everybody, not just Black, white, Latino, African American, Native American, Indians, Jews, whatever. Everybody deserves decent health and wants to be healthy at the end of the day.
Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Go watch the movie, pay attention, okay, and help us support Henrietta Lacks Foundation, everything about her. So one, this won't happen again, but two, that she is able to fully be immortalized. And that's the name of the movie, The Immortal Life. She cannot be killed now. Her DNA had charisma. Think about that. Black folks got charisma, okay, because we've been through a lot. Her DNA had charisma, okay. Let me go to Dr. Z, and I got a question for you. What would be one message that you have for a sickle cell patient, and what is the benefit of stem cell donation? Let's go, because we got some participants ready to get to work.
So we have to remember that the underrepresentation of the Black community in the donor pool makes it difficult for sickle cell patients trying to find curative therapy, so therapy that actually gets rid of their sickle cell disease in their bone marrow. It makes it challenging. And this is especially true for individuals who don't have brothers or sisters that are matched to them. They need to rely on a larger community. They need to rely on a community that looks like them biologically in order to match and give them a chance at cure. So if we're able to expand the number of potential donors that exist in the pool, then we're giving more individuals a chance at being cured of this devastating disease. So my message to people listening out there is go be a participant. Just like Walter said, go get that swab done. It's the easiest thing in the world. The process involved in getting to save somebody's life in the form of a curative therapy is not that hard. It's really easy to be a participant. So be active, get out there, get that swab done, and give these sickle cell patients a chance at cure.
Okay, love it, Dr. Z, Dr. Zadie, right? I love it. I pronounced it right, so I'm not going to even try it again. So there we go. David has kind of put it out there for you participants. What we need to do, go watch the movie, understand who Henrietta Lacks is, think what tried to be accomplished by keeping her quiet. Her DNA spoke, okay? Her DNA spoke to the world, and she's still impacting the world. Go and get your mouth swabbed so we can help people with sickle cell. I got a close relationship with a guy named Bobby Ingram, former NFL player. He's a coach for the Baltimore Ravens to this day. Just lost his daughter to sickle cell. She was 21, 22 years old. Family was devastated. Oh my God, I've talked to him. I mean, he's still trying to heal from his baby girl dying from sickle cell. That didn't have to happen. Okay, he told me about the tremendous pain that she was in. Look him up, Bobby Ingram. Played in the NFL 14 years. Seattle Seahawks, Chicago Bears. Look, these diseases don't discriminate. These diseases don't ask you if you're rich or poor. These diseases don't ask you, did your dad play in the NFL or did your dad play in the NBA? These diseases don't even ask if you played Major League Baseball. Leukemia claimed my uncle, okay, when he was 29 in the prime of his career. If someone could have donated with the same DNA, it could have saved not only his life, but his baseball career. And let me tell you a quick story. Because of that, I've always been a donor. Because of that, you ask me to donate anything, I'm gonna give it to you. In fact, the only thing you can't have is my heart. And when I'm out of here, if that heart still beats, then you can take it too. Because my heart bleeds for people, and I want to do whatever I can to be an impact player. So here's what's crazy. I agreed to be a bone marrow donor. They did what they had to do, and I got a call about 3 years ago that there might be a match. Me and one other lady in California. I'm talking to my mom. I said, you know what, Mom, I might be a match for a donor. You know what my mom says? Your sister just got the same call. My sister and I both gave because of my uncle, and this recipient, if something happened, we weren't able to go through with it. But this recipient had an opportunity to live because me and my sister were willing to give. And let me tell you something about life. It's more blessed to give than to receive, okay? And I want you to never forget that. And tonight, it's not about being a spectator. Tonight, this is about being a participant. You can save a life by getting your mouth swabbed, okay? You can save a life just by opening up your mouth and watching a movie and talking to politicians and lobbyists. And going back to Flint, you know, Dr. Karen, what can we do to help Flint? You know, I know Flint is in your heart. I know it's in your blood. What can we do to help Flint?
Well, one of the things I've said is people need to pay attention to Flint because the story isn't over. And things like this, helping us keep this information out there helps Flint. Keeping Flint in the spotlight helps Flint. And pressing some of those same issues. But the other way you help Flint is to learn from Flint. And don't let what happened in Flint happen in, where you live. Recognize that you can demand higher water quality standards. You can push the system for higher standards, that your voice is your power. So those are things that help Flint. Talk about infrastructure, talk about environmental justice, talk about systemic racism, and then hold elected officials accountable. One of the things we were able to do because it was a public health crisis is when I asked, this was under the Obama administration, when I met with them, I said, we need somebody like a chief public health advisor for the city of Flint because trust was so broken. And we were able to get that position. It was the first time we ever had that position in the city of Flint. And a lot of municipalities don't have them because they go through the county health department. But having brought her on, one of the things we and that was putting the health and well-being of the people first and making sure that all of the decisions that you make have public health as the priority, not finances, but public health. And so when we had those important conversations, it was around what's best as far as the public health and well-being of the people of Flint. You can, and when we're talking public health, we're talking physical health, we're talking mental health, we're talking oral health, we're talking all of those kinds of things, and to not separate them from each other because they're all intertwined. And so that's really, really important. One of the things, like I said, we ask people to let the government know that we still need that registry funded. We have a lead registry and it's running out of funds. And one of the things we want people to learn about are the physical implications of what happened in Flint, because it took us 1.5 years to find out that our stillbirth and miscarriage rate went up. It took us about 3 years to recognize that those special education rates went up. We're looking at mental health services have gone up, all of those kinds of things. And like I said, what are going to be the health consequences as we continue to, as time moves on? And so we wanted to have people entered in this. It was something that they did in New York after 9/11, so we can see what kinds of services and supports and medical interventions work, what has the best outcomes for people, and track that information so we can share this information with others. So I don't want people to think it's about Flint. It's about all of us. And we need to learn from each other and support each other because, like I said, Flint's just a poster child for so many other communities around the country, especially Black and brown communities, when you're talking about water and you're talking about air and you're talking about the ground and all of these other environmental injustice contaminants that happen in our cities. So we need to learn from each other. And I don't want people to think it's just about us. It's about all of us coming together. And like you said, participating in this process.
Well, let me say this, as a speaker, I spoke at a conference for an association of companies, and they sell the materials for cities to be able to repair their sewage and their water lines. Mm-hmm. And at the conference, I'll never forget, I was in California, and they said, you know what, Flint's not the only city, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Almost every major city has a crisis underneath the street where the water is being drawn in. So to your point, Flint should not feel bad. I think Flint just became the poster child for it. And I think you're going to hear about more cities going in the future, unfortunately. And hopefully we can do something to nip it in the bud.
You needed a poster child. You needed a poster child so all of these other places can get what they need as well, because it was being swept under the rug. You weren't hearing about it in these other places and it wasn't fair. And so that's why I'm saying use us. Use us so you can demand these things. Use us so you can get what you need. Use us, because when we do that, we help each other.
That's right. And so now other cities that have a water crisis, People are going to listen, people are going to pay attention. And sometimes you need a martyr. Sometimes, unfortunately, you need a sacrifice. Speaking of that, we have a special guest, using the baseball analogy, you got to have a closer, right? You got to have somebody who can come in and shut it down. I think it's appropriate for our next guest, Mrs. Kyra Mitchell. She's here representing college students everywhere on behalf of the NCAA CP. Kyra, are you there? Can I see you, Kyra? There she is. Look at that beautiful smile, great energy. And before I even ask you a question, I want everybody to hear me clearly because I got 3 kids. Again, my kids are 25, 23, 22. And I always hear older people saying those young kids just don't get it. You know what? My mom and dad used to say that. They do get it. They just grew up in a whole nother generation. My dad would say, boy, when I was your age, I had to cut wood and milk a cow before I went to school. Dad, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. Go get me a cow then. I'll milk it, right? You can't get a cow on the south side of Chicago. We all grew up in different generations. And you young people, don't you let people discourage you and act like you don't get it. You get it, okay? And I know you live in a whole different time. But Kyra, I just want to bring you on. Welcome, Kyra. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. Just so young and vibrant and beautiful. Speak to your college peers, okay? We need a revolution. We need some young people to rise up, okay? And I know we got to get on Instagram, and I know we got to do all this and all that. I get it, but speak to your peers. What would you like to see your peers on college campuses across the country do to help us with sickle cell? Okay, help us with leukemia. We didn't even talk about prostate tonight. Prostate's attacking Black men. Okay, what do you need your college students to do to help us fight these disparities in healthcare?
I think there's so many great things that have already been mentioned tonight. So instead of repeating those, I think I'll add on some more things to them. If you can see my shirt, it says vote, our lives depend on it, and it's because they do. We are 13 days away from November 3rd. Here in Michigan, we have early voting. Voting has already started. Over 2 million people have already voted in Michigan. So we want to make sure that people are getting out to the polls, they're casting their ballots and they're voting, because the decisions we make on election day when we elect these people into office are the decisions ultimately that are going to help us get the changes that we want to see in our areas, in our communities. If you don't know your polling location or you want to find out more information about your ballot, you can always go to michigan.gov/vote. You can pull up your polling place. You can pull up your clerk's office. You can even pull up a sample ballot and you can see every single name that will be on there, every proposal, everything. All the information will be there. Another thing too is we want to make sure that people are sharing the information that you saw tonight. So if you were able to get on, but your friend had an exam or they had an assignment or they were at work and they couldn't get this information, all it takes is a tweet, a post on Instagram, a recap, a conversation just to get that across and let them know what they missed out on. Because there's been so many great resources that were given tonight. We can't let the ball and the momentum stop here. We have to make sure that we continue it. Because if we ever let the momentum that we have die, the change that we want to see will die out too. So we have to make sure that we keep pushing forward and that we're sharing these stories, that we're sharing the information that we receive to other people. Because what we know, the person next to us may not know it. And we want to make sure that we pass that along, because the only way that we can move forward in this fight is by equipping ourselves with the knowledge to move forward. So making sure that we share the stories of Henrietta Lacks, we share the information about sickle cell, we educate ourselves, even if we want to find out more information. We go to websites like the CDC to find out more about sickle cell. We share these things with our people, so that way the next generation will know these stories, the people within our own generation will know these stories, and we can keep pushing forward. And we won't have to have the same conversation in 10 or 15 years about what can we do next, because we'll already come to the resolution that we wanted to see today.
Well, let me ask you one question, because I'm on a mission, and I told you guys in the beginning, I want participants, okay? So give your peers, okay? Give your homeboys and your homegirls on the hand, give them one instruction that they can go and do right now to get completely engaged in the movement.
To get completely engaged, the one thing I would say, I actually have 2 things. One, I would say to sign up for the registry list with Gift of Life, get your mouth swabbed, like you guys have been saying all night, get swabbed, get tested, because only we can save ourselves. We can't depend on other people. We have to make sure that we're there for our own communities. And the second thing I would say, of course, I'm always do the shameless plug for NAACP. Make sure you go to naacp.org and you become a member. That way you can get connected on the ground in your own community, and you can push this fight forward with healthcare, with criminal justice, with education. Wherever your passion lies, we have a spot for you at the NAACP.
Love it. We got the young people engaged. Man, go get your mouth swabbed. Be an activist. Get involved in political parties. Go and vote, okay? Go and vote. Go have an impact. Be an impact player. And I got to bring Jay back. Where's Jay? Cool J, J, J. Where's Cool J? I need LL Cool J. Where's Cool J? There's Cool J.
Right here.
Cool J. LL Cool J. Now, question.
Yep.
We got participants. They're ready. Jay, they are ready. What do you need to do to join the registry? Give us some instructions.
So as Dr. Zaidi and Kyra both mentioned, and you mentioned, to join the registry is very simple. It's just a cheek swab, right? This looks like a Q-tip. You swab it inside your cheek, you put it back in this envelope, and it goes off to the lab for testing. Now, we typically run donor drives. We do about 3,000 donor drives a year, but COVID-19 stopped that. So we're now doing all of our recruitment online through our website at www.giftoflife.org. Go to the website. You can complete a registration form. We'll send this to you. You sit in your kitchen or your family room, you do the swab, you send it off, and you join the registry. Now, I want to add one other thing. When you hear bone marrow donation, you immediately think about where you learned about it, which is on TV or in the movies. And unfortunately, Hollywood has somewhat over-dramatized the process of being a bone marrow or stem cell donor, and they've made it sound very, very scary. So I want to dispel that myth right here and now. The reality is that what you see on TV or in the movies is far from the truth. And in fact, 80% of the people who are called as a match don't even donate bone marrow. They actually donate stem cells that we take, peripheral blood stem cells. And in our office here, we have a stem cell collection center. Donors come here every single day to donate. They sit in a comfortable chair. They eat fresh baked chocolate chip cookies. They watch Netflix. They have a companion with them, a parent or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a spouse. They talk. And all the while they're relaxing and enjoying themselves, they're donating their stem cells just by taking blood out of their arm and running it through a machine that takes out those cells and puts the rest back in the other arm. That's for 80% of the time, that's how easy it is. So I just want to emphasize to people, the information that you get from Hollywood on TV and in the movies, that's not the truth. Go online, go to giftoflife.org, learn about the process, and then join. Because if we're going to address this healthcare problem, we have a big challenge ahead of us. Only 25% of people who are Black or multiracial can find a match. We have to grow the registry. We have to make it more diverse. And if we do that, we will help a huge amount of people. If we don't, then we're going to be in the same situation we are right now. So we need people to swab.
Well, Jay, thank you for those closing remarks. And I want to thank all of our panelists. Dr. Karen, wonderful. And just thank you for serving the city of Flint. And I'm telling you, if you ran for anything, you got my vote. You got my vote all day long. If I got to cut my arm and drop off some blood or whatever I got to do, you got my vote. Dr. Shade, thank you for your fight with sickle cell. And thank you for being transparent. You didn't come on here and sugarcoat it. You came on here and you called a spade a spade. And so because of you just being real, as the young kids would say, you kept it 100. And since you kept it 100, we understand that racism is in medicine. Oh yeah, like now we're just getting over the cops, right? Or the popo, right? Oh, 5-0, whatever you want to call them. Man, we got to deal with racism in medicine. Man, thank you for that. It is what it is. And so we're going to do whatever we can to support you in your fight with sickle cell. I want to connect you with my buddy, Bobby Ingram. He's an NFL coach, played in the NFL 14 years and lost his daughter to sickle cell. And you got to know him because, I had coffee with him and he lost his baby girl. Man, I got 2 daughters, man. I don't even want to go there. And somebody on tonight's call could have saved her life. If they could have been the match, right? So Dr. Z, thank you. David Lax, thank you so much. And your grandmother, man, she is immortal. And that title of that movie, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, couldn't have been a better title. And just thank you for your passion. Thank you for your commitment. And thank you for being an impact player. And finally, Jay, come on, man. You know, we talk about LeBron, we can talk about Michael Jordan, but let me tell you something. I played in the NBA. I mean, we overhyped that way too much. Michael Jordan's not going to change your life. LeBron's not going to save your life. But Dr. J, can I call you Dr. J? This is the real Julius Dr. J, okay? So thank you for being an impact player on behalf of the Gift of Life. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. This was a great kickoff to a town hall meeting. Hopefully you join other meetings. Tomorrow we're going to celebrate a town hall meeting in Florida. We've only just begun. Why? Because life is a gift. And thank you for joining us tonight with the Gift of Life Marrow Registry. Thank you.